On the Healthy Human Revolution podcast, Dr. Lori Marbas interviews nutrition and lifestyle medicine experts and extraordinary guests whose informative and inspiring stories will empower you with the knowledge to transform your life and health.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm Dr. Lori Marbas, and today I'm really excited to talk to Shaleen Shah. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Lori?
I'm very good. So you have some really cool stuff going on, you sanctuaries and all sorts of stuff. So first of all, I just really like for people to kind of just introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about who you are, your work, and then we can kind of go from there.
Sure. Well, I'm Shaleen, and I was, I was born in India, moved to the States when I was 10, and actually started my first business when I was 15. I've been a serial entrepreneur ever since. And more recently, in the past 6 years, my entrepreneurship has focused on nonprofits. My wife and I, we founded Luvin Arms Animal Sanctuary, as well as opensanctuary.org, amongst other ventures in the plant-based and vegan movement. We hope to help people go plant-based and save the world and themselves and lots of animals in the process.
That's just a small amount of things that have to be done here.
Right.
So let's start back to also, what was your history of entering into kind of this plant-based space? Because we all kind of have our sometimes we're born into it, but others, fall into it. What was your journey?
Yeah, it was actually my wife. She was the inspiring, fearless, leader in our larger family to go vegan first. But she was inspired by our first son. He was born in 2011 and very quickly realized that he was having problems in digesting. When he would nurse, he would throw up and was not thriving. And luckily, we had a very good, holistic-minded pediatrician who, instead of prescribing all sorts of medicine, said, try this elimination diet. And dairy was the number one on that list. And as soon as Shopi stopped dairy, he was like within 2 days, all of it cleared up. He started thriving. And that made her really think about, what's going on with dairy? Isn't that supposed to be good for us? And, why is my son having these issues? And then she really dug in and started connecting, the ethical side of, he's like, the babies are taken away from the mom. And she connected that with her and our son, and it clicked, very quickly.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, absolutely. It didn't. Doesn't it surprise you when you kind of gets like blinders being taken off? Like, well, why didn't I make this connection before? It's
Right.
like cows milk grows cows to 1,000 pounds
That's
or so
right.
a year in the first
Yeah.
year. What is it going to do to a little human body or an adult body as well? It really is shocking to yourself when you look back and go, what was I thinking?
Right.
But there's just so many of us that are kind of taken in by the different type of industry. Speaking of industries, the plant-based movement is certainly, I feel like, growing, or maybe it's just because I'm in this amazing silo that it seems to be getting bigger. What do you think as far as like the plant-based alternatives? Where do you see us going in the future?
It's absolutely exciting. I think I have a feeling that, not a feeling, but I would bet somebody, that I think we will see a majority plant-based or vegan world in our lifetime. And that I think that it's going to happen. And what's most amazing to me is that I think it will happen without majority of the population not even realizing that they're eating vegan. That the food technology will just get so good at replicating and mimicking, or even creating bioidenticals to animal-based products, that the industry is just going to switch to those alternatives because they will taste the same, look the same, smell the same, cost maybe even less, than what the animal products are, and are far better for the environment. And that switch will happen, and most people buying their food at the grocery store will have no idea that it's all vegan. I think
Wow.
that's where we're headed.
Awesome. So has there been movements in like, larger corporations that were traditionally, using animal products, moving towards plant-based products as well, investments and other organizations picking that? Because you hear about smaller mom and pop plant-based companies being taken up by these really large, like other, you would think Tyson is chicken and,
Right.
but they're actually taking in other things. Can you give us a little feedback on what's going on there?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, like Tyson has now started thinking about themselves as a protein company instead of a chicken company. And, protein, they recognize the issues of raising chickens, and it's a highly inefficient process of producing protein. There's a lot that goes into creating the food that the birds have to eat, and then the ratio of raw food to the end proteins, it's highly inefficient. So they are making more and more investments into alternative proteins, and I think many other companies are paying attention to that space. And there's plant-based, there's recombinant, there is precision fermentation, there is and far into the future is cellular based as well. So there's a lot of technologies that are coming into play that will help make those shifts. But yeah, a lot of traditional companies are paying attention.
Could you go back and explain some of those technologies that's for those of us who may be unfamiliar with those terms?
Yeah, absolutely. So plant-based is just as it sounds. It's made out of plants. Precision fermentation is there's technologies that essentially take microbes and ferment them. These are specialized microbes, either found in nature or genetically modified to produce a certain result. And the fermentation process creates the end results that are necessary. So a really great example of a company is Perfect Day. They are producing bioidentical cow milk proteins for food production. And they've done that by genetically modifying a microorganism that produces whey and other proteins that they then mix with plant-based fats and sugars, and they create a bioidentical milk product that is 100% vegan, ethical. I won't necessarily say like it's better for your health, but because bioidentical things, cow's milk isn't that great for us. So I'm assuming that bioidentical products not coming from non-cows are probably just not as good. But their product is really good. There's an ice cream company called Brave Robot that's essentially a spin-off from their company that uses this product, and that ice cream, yeah, we tried it and it took us back. Like it has that same mouthfeel, that creaminess.
Wow.
You kind of get that phlegminess in the back of your throat.
Yeah.
The unpleasantness of that. But it was incredible. So like thinking about that for the future, and then so recombinants, there's kind of a mix of the two world. Like the heme in, I believe it's Beyond Meat. They have the heme protein, so that's came from precision fermentation, whereas most of their other ingredients are plant-based. And then cellular is literally taking a cell from an animal without harming them, and then growing a whole meat alternatives, which we hear about. There's I think Just in Singapore is producing chicken nuggets that you can actually buy commercially in very low volume, very high dollars, but it's happening. So there's some very exciting things in this space that are, I think, moving the needle faster. which I think is very, very, very good for the planet, for us as humans, as well as the animals. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's a triple win there for sure.
Yeah.
And as soon as it hits the, the price point, I think that's where you're going to really see the kind of the critical mass things start accumulating and really moving things forward, when those technologies can be less of a novelty, but more of a, like, wow, this is a better alternative all around, including the
Right.
pocketbook. So wow,
Yeah.
that's so cool. So could you tell us a little bit? I really would like to get into the Luvin Arms, because I love your website. So I was like scrolling through and reading all the stories, the animals. That was really awesome. And there's some really cute ones in there. But could you give us an idea of, how that all came about and how you guys were inspired to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we went vegan. And to be honest, we didn't even know there was a vegan movement at that point. We did not have a single family or friend that we could share a vegan meal with.
Wow.
Up until 2014, my second son was born. And at that point, we just all of a sudden we started getting animals in our lives. It felt like we were being drawn to animals. And how that materialized for us was, I got back into horse riding. I used to horse ride in India, and then I started horse riding around the time when my son was born, and then we ended up adopting a horse, Holly. She was a rescue from a neglectful situation, but we adopted her, and it was the first time, because she was also the first pet in the house. We haven't had any other pets before that. And it was the first time when I really connected with a horse for who she was, instead of what I wanted out of the horse.
Wow.
So she really opened my eyes into, all of our eyes, really into just how sentient they are, how incredibly social, emotional, cognitive, skills that they have. And it became very clear to me that, she has a will of her own, and me riding her was me subjugating my will upon her. And so I stopped riding. And that really kind of opened up our eyes to, like, okay, well, what else is happening here? And we wanted to rescue more horses, because we read about all the horrible things that happened to them, everything from racing to, there are nurse mares that are mares just to give milk to racehorses, and their babies are killed off. And there is Premarin, where horses are kept pregnant and their urine is collected to make this menopause medicine. There's all this stuff happening just in the horse world. And so we ended up doing some more horse rescues, and one of them was at a slaughter auction in Fort Collins, and I went there to rescue them with some cash, and I had to wait 6 hours for them to come to the auction floor, because there were hundreds of other animals, farm animals, that are being kicked, pushed, prodded into this floor, being sold by the pound. And you could see in their faces, their eyes, the emotions, and it was an incredibly moving experience. We rescued the horses. There was a mare, Belle, and two babies that were there with her. We rescued them, but it felt like we didn't do anything. It felt like, there were so many others, and if only we had land, because the horses were being boarded. So we didn't have any land of our own. And so we just said, if only we had land, we could have saved some others. And that very night, I get a phone call from somebody we knew that, hey, there's 23 acres 2 miles from your house. Do you know someone who can use it? That's available for lease. And it felt very much like the universe was calling us to do something. And so we spent a night really contemplating it. We had two very little ones. Our youngest was barely 1 year old. We decided that, we need to do this. And so we signed the lease the next day. We had never taken care of animals, so our horses were boarded. We had never taken care of land, and I could barely swing a hammer to fix things. It was kind of a crazy move, but we did. And somehow a community formed around it, and we had, strangers coming out of all sorts of places to come and help. And that's when we first realized that there's a vegan community in here, in around Boulder and everywhere, and there's a movement, and we are now an accidental part of it. So it was great. It led us to learn a significant amount of things, and it's been 6 years. We've rescued over 800 lives.
Wow.
We do a lot of placements. We have about 113 at the sanctuary.
Okay.
And we've created a philosophy of what we are doing at Luvin Arms, and all of that came after starting at Luvin Arms. So but it's been an amazing journey, and there's just an incredible community around to help.
Absolutely. Because you mentioned on your mission statement, the HIMSA. Could you explain what that is for those who aren't familiar with the term?
Absolutely. So my wife and I, we were born and raised as Jains. Jainism is a religion out of India that's a fairly small group. I think there's just a handful of millions of people in the world that are Jains. But the core philosophy of Jainism is nonviolence, which is ahimsa. And that nonviolence is not just physical violence, but it is in our actions, in our thoughts, in our speech. It is in everything that we do. So it is about understanding the harm that we cause on a day-to-day basis, and then working to reduce that harm. So it's amazing having grown up in that culture and to think back that we were still participating as in the dairy industry. And so we were vegetarian, but consumed dairy. So what we do at Luvin Arms is an extension of those values. It is about putting ahimsa into action, helping inspire others to committing to nonviolence in their lives, and spreading compassion.
I love that. There's so many people, I think, really want to do that, but they struggle in how to do that. And so on a day-to-day basis, do you have any advice for those? Because I know you guys do tours and different things and had experts come out to your place there. What have you found that is some good advice for people getting started who really want to live this lifestyle, but maybe are a little struggling? Like, how do I even begin this journey of living ahimsa?
Yeah, I think first of all, people have to really kind of give themselves a lot of space and a lot of understanding for themselves, because this kind of change is difficult. So you first have to kind of give yourselves compassion. The lifestyle that we are kind of born into. I mean, there's generationals, right? Like it's the way we eat is the way our parents ate and their parents ate, and so you first have to kind of give yourselves that grace, and then understand that it's a journey, and that journey is reached on a step-by-step basis. You just take your first step. So if you want to go plant-based, if you want to go vegan, start somewhere small, and then keep moving forward. And what helps a lot of people who come to Luvin Arms is creating that connection with an animal resident. It's very difficult to continue to eat, pig products, ham or bacon. And once you get to really connect and meet with a pig that you can call by name and can picture their personality and their love for life, because that's exactly how all of the tens of millions of pigs that are being raised for food are like. So it's that connection that does help inspire a lot of people into moving in that direction.
Absolutely, because it's those small collections, right? So millions of people, billions of people making one small decision every day that really can make a big difference for everyone. So definitely, I agree with that. And it starts with compassion with yourself before anyone else, right?
That's right. Yeah, just like you have to love yourself before you can love others. You have to give yourself compassion for where you are in life before you can extend that to others.
Very cool. So you guys are in Erie, Colorado, and what other programs do you offer? I know you give tours and some other things, but what else should someone be looking for when they're on your website?
Yeah. So we do pre-pandemic, we used to have a lot of in-person events. We hope to go back to that. We've been doing many things virtually more recently. Um, but there's all sorts. I mean, we do cooking demos, we have nutrition classes, we actually have a software that we partnered with Lighter Nutrition to provide to people, which is an incredible meal planning service. So if you're looking to say, okay, well, I want to cook vegan, but I don't know where to start, this is a great tool that allows you to say, well, this is how much time I have. These are the tools I have in my kitchen for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it will help you make all of the meal plans and give you the grocery list. Like, it's super easy. So we provide that. We do, we've done cardiologists, plant-based cardiologists coming out. We've done really great like vegan farm to table dinners. We've had plant-based athletes come to the sanctuary and give, on a panel and give talks, because people come to this from all sorts of different perspectives, and not all of them are going to be convinced on an ethical level. They first sometimes may be convinced on, I want to do this for my health, for longevity, or because I have cardiac disease, or have obesity, or just any of those, or they're focused on being a really great athlete and they can come from that angle, or they want to start with just more kind of planet-friendly beauty products. There's all these different ways that people come to this. But then, we think of that as, this is your first step. It's the first door that you've opened, but there's others, and you slowly lead down that path. And people eventually do come to that ethical realization. And what we've found is, many people, they'll become plant-based for these variety of reasons, but then they stick to that. They become vegan when they get to the animals and they really make that connection, and that really helps them kind of move that forward. So
No, I agree. And we entered this about 10 years ago, not even for health reasons. It was just because I had a patient who had significant improvement, and I was like convinced by the science. I was like, this is just the right thing to do.
Right.
And that happens, right? So over time, as you learn, and I started this podcast 5 years ago, and you're interviewing, directors of amazing films like, Earthlings and Game Changers and all these incredible people, and they're telling you their stories and their connection with the animals. And then of course we've always had pets ever since I was a little kid, and the kids, and just looking back at the animals as their distinct personalities, like you said, and connecting to them. And it just really makes it hard. Honestly, I can't even go down the meat aisle now. Like the dairy aisle, the meat aisle, I just like, it's physically disturbing to me. And so it's a fascinating transition and growth, I think, of the spirit and the mind as you get exposed. So tell us a little bit, speaking of the animals, are there any fun favorite stories you have, or some of them more moving? Like the one in Fort Collins where you're talking about you're saving a horse and two foals, but there's just so many others. Are there any moving and things or events that happened that really changed you even further?
Yeah, there's so many. Because each one of the individuals there has their own story of kind of the challenges that they came from. But the one that really spoke to me was in 2019 December, 2018 December, we did a large rescue that was in LaSalle, Colorado. So there was they said their label was a humane chicken farm, and they were going bankrupt. They had over 35,000 birds in 4 buildings.
Oh my gosh.
They had already gone bankrupt, so they didn't have money for food or electricity or heat in these buildings, and it was the middle of Colorado winter.
Oh, wow.
There was birds. They were freezing to death. They were hungry. They were cannibalizing each other. it was an incredibly sad situation. But we went in and were able to rescue about 650 of the lives there. There were other rescues here in Colorado, some of the other sanctuaries that also rescued several hundred. But it was such a, it felt like we were able to help so many lives, but at the same time it was tiny compared to how massive the problem is. Just in that one farm there were 35,000 we rescued. With all the rescues combined, less than 1,500. And it's so that, and just being in that space, seeing how they were kept, how they lived, seeing the medical issues that came out of that, and just understanding that this was kind of that antibiotic free and more humane farm. But when you think about that, the reason why there's antibiotic use in these massive scale farms is because there's so much disease in this very confined space. And when you raise antibiotic free animals, you're essentially giving them a life of suffering because they are diseased and there is issues with their health, and now you're not providing them the medicine that they need, so you can say that this meat was raised antibiotic free. So there's all these things that you came out of that experience, that is, it speaks volumes to the challenges that we're up against. But the individuals from there, that we rescued, they healed, they connected and created bonds with a lot of our human volunteers and caregivers, and they are just some of the most precious, amazing individuals. And one of the programs we have at Luvin Arms is we do a lot for personal and individual enrichment. We create a individual enrichment plan for each of their animal residents that's at the sanctuary. And that spans in many different facets, but one of them is that kind of mental stimulation, as well as connecting and bonding with a caregiver, and providing care without fear, right? So because we don't have a shared language, so even providing care like weighing them on a scale, or wrapping their feet when they have a bumblefoot, like there's all these care processes that lots of times animals don't know what's happening and they are afraid. So to counter that and provide them enrichment and mental stimulation, we have a program called Clicker Play. So it's kind of like clicker, training with dogs, but we do that in a play, like in a play mode. Sometimes it doesn't have an end goal in mind. It's more of kind of, they get to interact one-on-one with a caregiver. They get to do, new and novel things. They are learning different things. So what's amazing is, one of the chickens from this rescue, Gracie, she is incredibly smart. You see that in Clicker Play. Like, she learns things very fast. Like she can, things like, she started by ringing a bell. She can distinguish between blue and purple. She can, it's incredible. And, so she her favorite thing to do is spin. She comes by her name. She's in a flock, and when her person comes to her with Clicker Play, she calls out by name and she comes running because she's excited. So it's that story, like where she came from, the situation she was in, but now she's at a place where she can truly shine as an individual and people can get to know her for who she is. And that makes an incredible difference. Because a lot of times people come to the sanctuary and they're like, I get the mammals, I connect with them. I can connect with a pig, or I can connect with a sheep, but chickens, I just can't connect to, right? Because they're as a species, they're so different from us. Some people have a hard time connecting. And then one time we had a farmer who was there with a bigger church group doing volunteerism, and they were having these conversations about, okay, well, I get leaving, meat from the mammals, but chickens, I just can't connect. And they're they're not that smart anyways. Like, why does it matter? But then he saw Gracie doing clicker play, and he literally couldn't watch. He turned around, he was crying, and he's like, I
Oh,
didn't know. Like, there's
oh,
so making those connections
right.
is incredible, and that happens with their stories of where they came from and who they are, and it's so powerful.
That is powerful because it really is removing our judgment that someone has value based on our own characteristics, right? So we're placing human characteristics on a different species, and if they don't somehow conform to that, that they're less valuable and they're expendable. That is
Yeah.
kind of where we're at least I think so. Yeah, it's amazing. Um, Incredible. So when you think about all these people that come to you, you're asking for volunteers and all these different things. What can we do as a community to help support you? Like, what are you needing? How can people connect? What would you as a organization like to see happen in your future? And how can we help that?
Yeah. So the future for us is finding ways. So I'll kind of step back. I guess our philosophy is we can't we can't tell anybody to change, right?
Mm,
Just like telling someone go vegan doesn't work.
mhm,
Sometimes even just providing them with knowledge or information is not enough to make them go vegan. What we feel works the most is inspiration. Like
mm,
being inspired as an individual to make a big change is what's required to make that change. So we are working to create a sanctuary that is inspirational. So that comes from the level of care that we provide our individual residents, and then being able to demonstrate it, at an inspirational level.
mm,
We want to do an art program, so animals, farmed animals in art, become inspirational because as humans we connect that as, well, they're worthy.
mm,
Even the sanctuary facilities that we're building, our future plans are to create a animal-centric design that is built specifically for different species, and create an environment where, as you walk through, you can feel inspiration in just the space.
mm,
But it doesn't look like any farm, but it instead looks like a village, a community, a
mhm,
home for the animals. So that's the future of the sanctuary. But everything we've achieved in the past 6 years is because of the community of thousands of volunteers. And we're always seeking like-minded, passionate volunteers, to join us and help build this future.
Awesome. And the website is lovinarms.org.
That's right.
And can you tell us a little bit about what Open Sanctuary is?
Yeah. So when we first started Luvin Arms 6 years ago, we had no idea, like I said, how to even care for the farmed animals, what to do, what the building should look like, what their homes, what kinds of medical challenges they have. We have absolutely no idea.
Mm,
Googling for that information, you end up finding, information of how to, essentially grow a pig for food versus how to care for them for their lives.
mm,
And each of these species, because they're farmed and they are selectively bred over many, many generations, over tens of thousands of years, they have very acute, very specific medical issues.
mm,
Like pigs are raised to, gain 300 pounds in the first 8 to 9 months of their lives, so then they can be slaughtered at that age. They have all sorts of issues when they live beyond that. So
mm,
there's arthritis, there's skin cancers because factory farm pigs are bred to be very light skinned because that makes for a lighter colored meat.
mm,
And there's all sorts of skin cancers with birds. There's ovarian cancers and egg laying chickens. There's also all of these issues that were not very apparent when we first started. There was not
mm,
enough information. So Open Sanctuary was created about 3 years ago. We luckily we got a grant that allowed us to start this, and that has now grown. It is essentially, it's a free resource for anyone in the world who is interested in starting, running, or growing a farm animal sanctuary, however small to however big. It provides hundreds of well-researched, well-documented articles that show how to care for these animals, how to give them the best possible lives, how to give them an enriching life, as well as it provides other information on how to manage and grow a nonprofit that focuses in this area.
Mm.
So we've been able to reach well over, I think, about 1.3 million page views over the past 3
Wow.
years.
Wow.
There's many articles that are available in multiple languages now, and it's our way of helping spread this information, democratizing this information, so many more people can help farmed animals.
Absolutely. How many sanctuaries are in the United States? Do you know, or even in other countries? Or I'm assuming the United States is one of the most common.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
More.
the US is probably one of the bigger ones. It's hard to come by that data, but from what we have, I think we're close to 300 sanctuaries here in the US of varied sizes. But there's at least 300 that have connected with us in one way or the other.
Wow.
And then there's, of course, hundreds others all around the world. So I think our database is close to about 600.
Wow. Wow. So small to, but there's just so much more that should and can be done. Goodness
Yeah.
gracious. And then as far as your personal uh, journey and where you'd like to see others be able to go. I mean, it was so I kind of wanted to dive in a little bit because you had talked about, treating and talking to the animal growth and stuff, but you saw yourself change, you gave up riding horses. So what is the personal journeys you've seen of besides, like the farmer crying, he's like, wow, I just didn't know. Is there
Yeah.
any other stories of individuals, humans who you've seen the sanctuary change or just your being in touch with you in your operation?
Yeah, I think that change is always a constant. I think at Luvin Arms,
Mm,
people come. One of the core philosophies of Luvin Arms is being very open. So you don't have to be vegan or even vegetarian to come and volunteer at Luvin Arms or visit.
mm,
We are very open and accepting of everyone who, wherever they are in their life journey, to come and be part of the community. And that change just happens on its own. Just really
mm,
spending time with the animals is all it takes to inspire that change.
absolutely.
So those stories are very bountiful
Hmm.
at Love and Arms.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Very cool. So wonderful. And I did want to, so you said Hallie, it's Hallie, correct? Was the
Yeah,
first one, the
that's
first
right.
horse who's still there.
Yes.
So we can go see her and see the inspiration for this incredible journey that you guys have created.
That's
So,
right. And Belle was
and
the
Belle,
one that we rescued from the auction.
oh, okay.
And yeah, it's like she had that direct line to the universe. And when we
Oh,
rescued her, she started the sanctuary like literally within 24 hours.
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, but
Oh my goodness.
she's still there too.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. So, for, before we close up, and I want to be respectful of your time and everything, is there any last bit of advice you have for someone maybe who wants to help, but maybe they can't open a sanctuary or do something? What would be one of the first things that they could do to help in their local community or
Yeah.
for you as well? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I think opening a sanctuary, I wouldn't advise very many people to open a sanctuary without truly going deep and understanding, and which is also a part of what Open Sanctuary does. It helps people understand the true depths of everything involved in running a sanctuary, and it's highly complex, and it's unlike with our dogs and cats, it's much more medically required in farmed animals, and it's also very difficult to find veterinarians that understand and can treat farmed animals for their full life. So yeah, I think for anyone who wants to help animals, if you have a sanctuary close by, go volunteer, be a part of their community, help them do their work, because a very intensive amount of work.
Mhm.
And then I think activism is great. Helping to spread the information is still great, because that information build up then leads to that inspirational moment. Most people think that they went vegan when this one thing happened, but all the steps before that, that informational layering and the
Mm,
experience layering that had to happen for that inspirational moment to happen
mm,
is important. So there's all different ways of spreading that message and helping people build those layers, so that one day they will have that inspirational moment.
mm.
So get involved in the movement, and in whatever way that you feel comfortable, and help people build those moments.
That's fantastic. It's just like, you see people, it's the Summer Olympics now, and you're like, they make it look so easy, but it's all those small moments that made it to this point for them.
That's
It's
right.
exactly right. It's those collection of experiences and thoughts and emotions and interactions with others that really shape who you are at that moment. And it might be the one moment that changes your life. So absolutely. So,
That's
well,
right.
thank you so much for your time and generosity and your giving to this world, and making it a better place for humans and animals. And we really appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Lori, thank you. It was such a
Yeah,
pleasure speaking.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that video. Before you go, though, please hit the subscribe button and the alert button so you will be notified whenever we upload any new videos. On Monday, we upload the Healthy Human Revolution podcast. Now, if you'd rather listen to the podcast, you can find it on all the major platforms, such as iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and even Spotify. On Tuesdays, we upload the Doctor's In. This is where I answer your questions. Thinking of that, could you please comment below any questions you might have about health or wellness, or any topics that you would like me to cover? Now, if you're looking for more resources on how to start a plant-based diet, sustain a plant-based diet, exercise, recipes, anything regarding wellness, we've got you covered. Check out healthyhumanrevolution.com. And again, thanks for watching.